Hello and welcome back to Peaky Boardgamer. My name is Rakos. Today I will teach you how you can play the game Katmai, the Birds of Brook River. In this nature-themed duel game, each player takes control of a bear group during their lunchtime, trying to catch as many salmon as they can. And you do that by strategically placing your beeples next to the riverside. This game is published by Osprey Games and will take you about 30 minutes to finish. Let's move to the table and see how Katmai is played.
In the game, bears are very hungry and are up for a salmon feast on the riverbanks. The game is split in rounds. On every round, players alternate turns playing one of their cards to their side of the board and then reveal them. Cards contribute dominance and feature special powers. After players play all their cards, for each river tile, dominance is calculated and the dominant player gets to place one of their beeples. Based on this placement, the player checks for scoring eligibility in objective cards, catching salmon, which is victory points in the game. When the game's end is triggered, the player that caught the most salmon wins in Katmai. First, take all river tiles and after you shuffle them, arrange them all in a straight line between players. Note that all tiles have this illustration and tiles should be placed so that they point the same direction. Each player selects one of the two bear colors and takes the card deck, the 12 beeples, the 24 salmon tokens and the bear cub token of the corresponding color. Next, take the double-sided objective cards. One side illustrates these pictograms and is for an easier game, and the other has this pictogram and is used for a more advanced game. At this point you must select your mode. If you go for the light game, you must select a letter from A to H and then you must find and use the 4 objective cards depicting this letter in the bottom left corner. So if I choose B, I should use these cards. Place the used cards next to the river like this and remove the rest objective cards from the game. If you go for the advanced game, separate the objective cards based on the number of symbols in the top, 1, 2 or 3, and then randomly pick 3 from this stack, 2 from this stack and 1 from this stack. Create a pyramid of cards like I show you and remove the rest from the game. Flip the initiative token to determine the first player, who then keeps this token near their play area, and the game is now ready to start.
A short pause in the video here to remind you that if you haven't done already, please subscribe to this channel. It costs nothing but really makes a difference to me and this channel. Also hit that bell button so you get notified of all our future videos.
The game is played in a series of rounds until the end of the game is triggered. Every round is split in 4 phases: prepare, play cards, place beeples and catch salmon, and the cleanup phase. Let's now analyze each of the phases. In the prepare phase, each player shuffles their deck of 12 cards and sets 2 random cards aside without looking them. These will be unavailable for the current round. Then the player draws 2 cards to be placed in their hand, which they keep secret from their opponent. In the play cards phase, players alternate turns playing 1 card each, starting with the player holding the initiative token and then revealing them. Important! On every turn, just before the player with the initiative plays the first card, they may pass the initiative token to their opponent, thus forcing them to become the first player and play the first card. When it's your turn to play a card, you select one of your cards in your hand and play it next to any one of the river tiles on your playing side face down. Make note that you can also play cards on top of other cards played on the same river tile, but can never exceed the limit of 3 cards. The opponent then follows and does the same on their side of the river. After both players have played a card, the cards are revealed, and if they have an immediate effect indicated with a lightning symbol, it is resolved now. If both players played a card with an immediate effect, the card of the player with the initiative is resolved first. There are 2 immediate effects. Once a card with this effect is revealed, you may take any other played card from your side and place it on top of that card. With this effect, you move the topmost bear card played by your opponent in the same river tile to any other river tile. Cards depicting red powers will affect the card's domination value, but at this point they have no further effect. After you are done with immediate effects, both players draw a new card from their decks and proceed with the next play a card turn. The first player again may pass or keep the initiative before playing first in the second turn, and so on and so forth, and this phase will end when both players have played all their 10 cards. In phase 3, place people and catch salmon, starting from the river tile, which is further upstream, and going downstream, tile by tile. Players add up the dominance values of all cards they played on their side next to that river tile. The player with the highest total gets to play one of their beeples on one of the 4 square spaces of the river tile, provided the space is empty and that the player has remaining beeples in their personal supply. If there is a tie in dominance, no player places a beeple. However, if there is a tie and the player has placed at least one card with the sow icon against the river tile, the player may place their cub token on their cards, and thus break the tie to their favor. If both players have this symbol on their cards, the player with the initiative gets the call first. Cub token tiles cannot be removed until the end of the round, and you only have one. Bear cards with red dominance powers apply their effect now while calculating the dominance of the river tile. There are 4 different dominance powers. This power makes the dominance power of this bear card equal to 5 instead of 3, if at this time the river tile has a square with a depicted feature which is empty. In our case, the tile has such a feature, but it's occupied, thus the dominance power of this bear card remains 3. This power makes the dominance power of this bear card equal to 4 instead of 1 if both players have played an equal number of cards for this tile. Here, both players have played 1 card, so this bear now contributes 4 dominance to the player's total. The opponent has played a card with this power, which makes their opponent's card with the least dominance value to be equal to 0. Important, this specific power is always applied after all other effects. So, in this example, the card that was just turned into 4 due to that power is now reduced to 0, and the brown player will now place a beeple, as they are now the dominant player for this tile. Finally, cards with this power have no dominance value, so on their own they contribute no dominance. But if they are placed on top of another card like this, they replicate that card's value. Important, these cards cannot be targeted by other powers, but if the dominance of that card is changed, so does the replicated card's value. So, in this phase you calculate dominance for a river tile, and then the player with the highest total may place one of their beeples. Every time right after you place the beeple, you check the objective cards in case your beeple placement has satisfied one or more of them. These objectives usually relate to a pattern that you must make with your beeples. If you do satisfy one or more of them, you place salmon tokens of your color on top of these cards, equal to the number of symbols in the top of the card. Example: I have just placed this beeple here, and this placement now satisfies 2 objective cards. This one here, as I now have 4 beeples in a row, so I score it and place 3 of my salmon tokens on top of the card. I also satisfy this card because I have created this pattern, 2 beeples with an empty square in the middle. So I also place 1 token on this card. Some objective cards, like the ones I just scored, depict a river tile square feature. If your just placed beeple is on a square with the depicted feature, then if you scored the objective card, you also place a bonus salmon. In our example, I placed the beeple on this square hosting a feature which is depicted on one of the objective cards I just scored, so I get the bonus and place 1 more salmon on the card. Objective cards with this crown pictogram are only checked and scored at the end of the game based on the condition written on the card. All salmon placed on objective cards will remain there until scoring, and these actually are your victory points. Important, you can score the same objective card multiple times, but only once with every beeple placement. In the cleanup phase, you collect all of your played cards, as well as the 2 cards you set aside at the beginning of the round, and shuffle them. You also take back your Bird Cup token if you have placed it on the river. All beeples will remain in place, and important, the initiative marker is not passed to the other player. You check for the game's end after the end of the cleanup phase on every round. The game can end in two ways. One of the triggers is that one of the players has managed to place 4 or more beeples on the riverboard than the other player. In this case, the game ends immediately without scoring in favor to the player that placed more beeples. The other trigger is if one player has 0, 1 or 2 beeples remaining in their personal supply. Then the game proceeds to scoring. In scoring, you first resolve objective cards that have the crown pictogram and assign salmons of the player who wins it. This card, for example, awards 3 salmon to the player that has the biggest group of connected beeples on the board, and that is that player. Then players add up all scored salmon, and the player with the most salmons wins. If there is a tie, the tie breaks in favor to the player that placed the most beeples on the river. If there is still a tie, both players share their victory.
And that was Katmai, the Birds of Brook River. If you like our videos and want to see more, please subscribe to our channel. Until next time, have fun and play more board games.